All right, guys, NFL awards last night, and I'm pretty sure Kevin O'Connell either spilled the beans or he misspoke. I don't know. I guess that's up for all of us to debate, but it was after he won Coach of the Year, and then bada bing, bada boom, he had a local media chat, and Dave Burkett from the Detroit Free Press claimed that O'Connell said Sam Darnold's a big part of our plans winning games going forward. And that started like an 11 p.m. firestorm. And we all woke up this morning to guys like Alec Lewis of The Athletic tweeting out a longer quote from Kevin O'Connell, which you can read right there, where he kind of backtracks and says, that's not exactly what I said. And he even mentioned that Sam Darnold deserves the right to go to free agency. So I think he kind of like spilled the beans on a couple of different things here with Sam Darnold. What's your takeaway from it, Will? I mean, this is a bit goofy.
Yeah, it was an interesting one. I was watching the awards show, and then I didn't see they did. It wasn't a televised kind of press conference that Dave Burkett, who tweeted out this quote that got everybody fired up. I think it was just a little thing he did with maybe 2 or 3 questions, talking to some people on scene in New Orleans, and I don't know exactly what he said there. I don't think I've seen a video or a transcript, but what the guy quoted him as saying was, we want to win a championship with the Vikings, and Sam Darnold's going to be a big part of that. And my kind of charitable reading of that is maybe he just misspoke, because there would be no reason for him to say that and to make any sort of public commitment right now. So yeah, there's the Dave Burkett, who I think works for the Detroit Free Press.
Yeah. So he's clarifying it here. Somebody asked him, so did he actually say that, or were you joking? WTF. Yeah, he actually said that. And by the way, Dave Burkett has MVP vote, so he's not like some random dude. Someone asked him about Darnold, and that was his answer. I wasn't recording it because I wasn't writing about it. Just came back from the Hall of Fame presser as Antonio Gates was bouncing to different stops when he got asked. Those pressers are like 3 questions long for what it's worth. Okay, well, I mean, he's a reputable guy.
Yeah, I wonder exactly what it was that O'Connell said. He may very well have said something along those lines. It was a big night for him. He won the Coach of the Year. He went up on stage in front of all the NFL royalty, and you got somebody calling him a bozo there. Kevin O'Connell was dealing with a lot. He was dealing with a lot. He maybe hadn't kind of practiced exactly what he was going to say. And I do think he really believes in Sam Darnold and supports Sam Darnold, but also Sam Darnold's a free agent, and it is going to come down to how much the Vikings are willing to offer him and how much he gets from other teams that will determine whether or not he's back in Minnesota.
Well, if this is actually true that he said, like Burkett says here, our goal is to win a championship, and Sam Darnold is going to be a huge part of it when we do it. I mean, if he actually said that, how do you feel about it? I mean, if that's him spilling the beans, are you glad? Are you excited? Are you indifferent?
Tony?
Yeah, I think
look at Will just dodged.
I think a little bit that he did misspeak a little bit, but I think it does show that if it goes Kevin O'Connell's way, I think he might want Sam Darnold back in the building next year. And what capacity is a different argument, and I think him and Kwesi and the front office are probably having those conversations ongoing, and it might change a month from now. But I think whether he meant it or not, I think in the moment he kind of hopes that Sam Darnold's with the team next year. And like the reporter said, there's so many questions he's getting asked, so much stuff going through his mind, and focusing on one short snippet might be over the top a little bit, but I think it does show that he's a big Sam Darnold fan and wants him back.
He's definitely a big Sam Darnold fan. And I will say this, I think last year, Kevin O'Connell legitimately wanted Kirk Cousins back because he knew, he saw what Kirk Cousins did before the Achilles injury in his offense. He was playing at a really high level. He valued Kirk's ability to read defenses and make all these throws from the pocket. But it's not just a simple equation of, all right, let's re-sign that guy. The Vikings made Kirk Cousins an offer. The Falcons made him a bigger offer, and he was gone. And guess what? That worked out really well for the Vikings. I think it's a similar story this year where Kevin O'Connell, the journey that he went on with Sam Darnold. I think that really, really means a lot to him. And he knows from studying the tape closer than any of us that Sam Darnold played at a really high level all year. He also knows what happened in the last 2 games. So it's just going to come down to the cost. And I do think it's important what you see on the screen right now, the follow-up, where he was given a chance in a kind of conference call with Twin Cities reporters where he could have doubled down on what Dave Burkett has quoted him as saying, but he gave a little more nuanced answer here, saying, I don't think that was necessarily 100% accurate in the spirit of answering a question about Sam's season and what he was able to do this year.
I think what happens is these coaches, they answer so many questions and they go into cliche mode all the time. It very well could have been him just repeating what he said throughout the entire season, and he's not quite, transitioned to the mystery quotes, right? So I don't know. He's just so used to him being on the team. It could have been a very simple gaffe, and I think we're all kind of overplaying it at this point, especially when he backtracks and then he mentions that Darnold deserves a shot at free agency. That you could look at it the entirely different way and say, man, he just spilled the beans there that Darnold's not going to be back. They're going to let him go to free agency. So I think he set the stage both one way or another, where it still is just a big unknown. And
kind of like Justin Jefferson this week, where he was like,
yeah,
JJ McCarthy deserves, he's going to get a shot, but I think we're going to bring Sam Darnold back. Like, he just covering both sides of the story here.
Yeah, let's go on to another topic, because this one is absolutely fantastic. We have our guy Naz Reid. I wrote this morning for Timberwolves on SI about the 5 best moments from last night's 125-114 Wolves win over the Rockets, and Naz Reid's snarl is so underrated. We're talking about Scar from The Lion King. Look at this snarl coming in here. This is just nasty. Jock Londale, or whatever his name is, you had no business being in that ring with that man, and you are lucky there were some zebras there to back you away from him, because you would have been on the court in a pool of blood. That was awesome.
And then Grunts coming out with the boxing gloves was great. That was maybe the most fun Wolves game of the year last year. I've said that a few times this year. There was that Denver one earlier. There's a couple now that are slipping my mind, but that was up there with, for a February game, the playoff intensity. I mean, you got Dillon Brooks and Anthony Edwards going at it. You've got Jock Landale, for some reason, shoving Naz Reid when he just ripped the ball out of your hands. He didn't do anything wrong or illegal or disrespectful. You just got punked a little bit because you're not as strong as him, and you decided to shove him. And I like the Naz snarl and the clapping. And I think Anthony Edwards, as the leader of this Wolves team, he brings a lot of that. Like last week in Phoenix, if you guys remember that game, he was yelling and going, yeah, after every dunk late in the game, and talking to Kevin Durant. And Ant brings that, and I think it filters down to Naz Reid and Jaden McDaniels and a lot of the other guys on this team. And it's fun to watch when they respond to the intensity of a pest like Dillon Brooks.
Yeah, man, he is a pest, and he's good for the game. I mean, there's no question that he brings
a very good player. He's not
everybody
jerk.
would love that dude on your team, right? I mean, it's not like he's causing massive distractions all over the place. He called out LeBron last year, and then LeBron gave it to him, and it hasn't worked out for him. But I like guys who are willing to stir the pot. It's just great, because you had a good versus evil situation last night where Dillon Brooks is this hated villain, and all of a sudden Anthony Edwards comes in and he's literally Spider-Manning him to death as the night goes on. I mean, he's literally doing the Ant Spider-Man hands thing, staring at him going down the court. And that was a Michael Jordan moment for me, guys. I mean, I don't know how many moments get more Michael Jordan than that, but Anthony Edwards, when he plays like that, you could legit say he is the best player in the NBA. And this is why when we talk about would you trade Anthony Edwards for Luka Doncic, I say hell no. I mean, that's vintage form. There's just nobody better in the game when he's playing like that. Tony, do you agree? Disagree?
Yeah, I mean, after that game, I think this is the best I've felt about the Timberwolves since the Cat trade. I think they really showed what this team can be when they're all gelling together, and they do have that fire led by Anthony Edwards that they don't get punked. They bring the energy, and they're not going to let another team dictate the pace of a game. And everything that you guys said. It felt like it was a playoff atmosphere, and a game like that you can build off of heading into the All-Star break now in the second half of the year. And that was everything you want to see out of Anthony Edwards. Like you said, Joe, I think that's what makes him Ant-Man, and that's what makes Timberwolves fans think that he can be the best player in the league. And I think this team just badly needed a game like that because it showed that they still have it in there, that they can be a top contender in the West.
You guys, this is one of my favorite. Go ahead, Will. I'll pull this up.
I was going to say, I don't know that Anthony Edwards is one of the 5 best players in the league right now, but he's knocking on that door, and he has all the ability in the world to access that level on any given night at 23 years old. He doesn't right now do it every night like a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or a Jokic or Giannis, or even I would say Luka Doncic when he's healthy. But he can get there, and over the last 2 nights, scoring 90 points on a back-to-back, he has totally gotten there. He's gotten to the free throw line like Shai, which is something that we've been looking for from Ant, who just doesn't seem to get a lot of calls when he drives to the rim. He obviously, we know he can dunk on people, and then he's the youngest player ever to 1,000 threes. He's leading the league in threes this year. The best shooter in the NBA this season. Like, he's been Steph Curry this year, who can also dunk on people when he wants to and get to the rack and defend at a high level. He's special, and he is so fun to watch. I mean, he is maybe my favorite Minnesota athlete ever, just from the joy that he brings watching him go out there and compete and then dance around after he gives you 41.
Dude,
and
he was
victory.
pointing. He was pointing at Dillon Brooks and the Rockets as they left the court early. There was like 0.2 seconds left. Earlier in the night, I couldn't find this video earlier today when I was looking, but it would have made my top 5 best moments of the game last night. But after who was it was Terrence Shannon was in the game, and Terrence Shannon was playing defense on him, and Brooks flopped, and he got teed up for the flop. Well, Anthony Edwards was just jawing at him like, you flopping mother, and it was just nonstop relentless. Like as ferocious as intimidating as Dillon Brooks tries to be, Anthony Edwards just got bigger and bigger and bigger, no matter how big Dillon Brooks tried to get. And that is next level superstardom. And then to laugh at a team as they go off the court, that was like big brother
seed in the West.
Dude, that was big brother syndrome right there. I mean, that's something that it's almost like a passing of the torch. Like Anthony Edwards, Karl Anthony Towns, these Timberwolves teams in the past, they had to get laughed off the court against teams like Houston in the playoffs before. And now you see this whole circle of life kind of playing out where now they're the big brother. They're the big boys. These guys are the team that you do not want to play in the playoffs. Nobody wants to play Houston. Don't get me wrong. That's a good team. And they did not have Fred VanVleet, and they did not have Jabari Smith Jr. So when they're rolling, they're really, really good, obviously, and they can clearly beat the Timberwolves on any given night. But I think that was a good example of what Houston's going to face in the playoffs. They're just going to have to take their lumps. They're going to have to take their medicine. They're going to have to experience the growing pains. And this is why Minnesota, guys, is so damn dangerous. They can do exactly what they did last night. And they're going to get better because Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo are likely back, if not right after, shortly after the All-Star break. And the depth we see on this team with guys like Jaylen Clark and Terrence Shannon Jr. and Rob Dillingham finding his rookie waves. He's starting to find the balance, ride that wave. Holy God, this team is deep. And that's why in my post-trade deadline power rankings for the Western Conference, I have Minnesota third. I don't know. You guys might think that's crazy, but I have them third in the West. And a big reason why is you see on the bottom line there, they're doing the opposite. It's like fantasy football back in the day when, everybody was loading up on running backs and you had to do the opposite. You had to draft wide receivers to take advantage of that. Let everybody fight over the running backs, take the wide receivers, get the best of the best and dominate. Well, in the NBA, 10 of the 12 teams who are legit playoff contenders pursuing a spot in the postseason in the Western Conference, they were super active before Thursday's trade deadline. Minnesota and Denver were not. That's like the NBA trade deadline version to me of doing the opposite. And now what we'll see hopefully play out in my mind is the Timberwolves not have to go through the growing pains of learning how to play together and finding synergy and rhythm like all these other teams who have added and subtracted players and pieces are going to have to do down the final 30 games of the regular season into the postseason. Minnesota might be miles ahead in terms of gelling as a unit. And that guys, number 3 in the West, I really do think they're one of the best teams in the Western Conference, and you can't question it at this point. I don't care if Luke is in LA. I don't care if Anthony Davis and Caleb Martin go to Dallas. I don't care about De'Aaron Fox in San Antonio. They're all good. They're all fun. But Minnesota has the upper hand, I think, because they don't have to learn how to play together. They've already done that. Tony, where do you got the Timberwolves in your Western Conference power rankings, if I have to put you on the spot right there? Same question to you, Will.
No, I agree with you, kind of going off what I said earlier. This is the best I've felt about the Wolves all year, especially after a game like this against the Rockets, a team that's going to be in the mix at the top of the West. I think the Rockets are kind of in a position that the Wolves were 2 years ago when they played the Grizzlies in the first round. Like they might be a year away from being a real contender, just they don't have that experience in the big playoff series. And I think the Wolves can take advantage of that. And like you said, I think third is at the highest you can put them at right now. But I think you can really make an argument that they're that high up there because I do think chemistry is going to play a role. While the Wolves, I guess, still are trying to get Julius Randle and DiVincenzo into the rhythm a little bit, I think they're further ahead than teams like the Mavericks and the Lakers who are going to be doing that at the end of the regular season. So I think it's a really interesting spot that they're in right now, and I think this win gives them opportunity to build on a lot of stuff going forward.
Yeah, I think the Thunder have to be number one. I don't think there's any question about that. They're 40-9, ridiculously deep, have one of the two MVP candidates. I think the Grizzlies have earned the right to be number 2 with what they've done so far this season. Their playoff experience in the past with Ja Morant, the way Jaren Jackson's playing, adding Zach Edey, Desmond Bane, I think they deserve to be 2. But then really 3 through 8, 9, 10 can all be kind of argued. There are 5.5 games separating the Nuggets in 3rd and the Warriors in 11th. So it's just there's not a whole lot of kind of a gap there. And I think the Wolves have an argument to be certainly as high as number 3. I might put Denver still there just for now, and I might put the Wolves 4th. I think they're right there with the Lakers. The Lakers, LeBron James last night at 40 years old had 42 points, 17 rebounds, and 7 assists. They're about to add a top 5 player to that. It might take them a little bit. They also got Mark Williams. Actually, I think I'm putting the Lakers 4th now that I talk about it, and the Wolves 5th. But they are right there. I'll put them ahead of the Clippers and the Rockets and the Mavericks. And yeah, I think the Houston thing, if that's the playoff matchup for the Wolves, and that could be a 3-6 or a 4-5 or something like that, I would feel pretty good about that for the Wolves. They are 2-1 against them this year. Their only loss was an NBA Cup game at home that went to overtime that I was at. They should have won that game. Ant has killed them the last 2 times with clutch late shots in the 4th. I think it'd be a 6 or 7 game series, but I think they could win that series. And you look at the Wolves' schedule overall, since January 4th, when Ant had 53 in a kind of ugly 14-point loss in Detroit, the Wolves are 12-6, and 5 of those losses have come by 2 points or less. The only time they've lost by more than 2 points since January 4th was facing the Cavs at home. They lost by 7 on the second night of a back-to-back after winning it at New York. So they have been in every game. They could easily be 15-3 over their last 18 games or something like that. A couple Memphis losses by 2, a Golden State loss at home by 1. Washington and Sacramento earlier this week, they should not have lost at home. So they have been playing really, really good basketball for over a month now. A lot of it without Dante DiVincenzo, who had been playing well. You got Anthony Edwards just doing his thing, averaging over 30 a game for a while. Jaden McDaniels is finally kind of taking that leap and averaging 12, 13, 14, 15 points. Naz Reid is shooting over 50% from 3. And we should talk about Jaylen Clark, who has just been unbelievable since he got into the rotation last week. 17 points last night against Houston. He's already one of, I think, the better perimeter defenders in the entire league. So this team is very fun right now. and I'm looking forward to just watching them continue to grow. I think there's going to be some questions we'll have to answer, and Chris Finch actually will have to answer when Julius and Dante are back about what that rotation looks like, because I don't think you can take Jaylen Clark out of it. I still want to see some Rob Dillingham. So what do they do there? Maybe somebody else will get hurt and that decision will be made for them. But this team is a lot of fun right now.
Yeah, what we saw last night, guys, was clutch time heroics. And that hasn't been the case this season. You know, you do the math, and the Timberwolves, you're looking at the screen right here, we're sharing NBA.com stats. These are clutch time numbers, which is a game that's in the final 5 minutes of regulation or overtime, and the score is separated by 5 or fewer points. The Wolves have tied with the Warriors for 32 such games. I mean, they're all coming down to the wire, guys. And they're 14 and 18 in those games. So they shoot 41% from the field and 26.7% from three, and even lousy at the free throw line in clutch time. Thank you, Rudy Gobert, 73.7%. So if they can play like they did last night in the final 5 minutes, because it was a 1-point game with 4 minutes to go and they won by 11, that's the separator. I mean, if they could just turn that around, if they were 18 and 14, they would be right there for the third seed in the West right now if they were better in clutch time games. So it's not like this team is that far off, and I think we're starting to see more and more signs that they're going to turn into an absolute juggernaut. Tony, I got to ask you about this. That is Williams Arena last night at the women's Golden Gopher basketball game. Not a big crowd. And you're telling me off camera that most of those fans might have been Iowa Hawkeye fans. What's going on there?
Yeah, I think optimistically it was probably a 50-50 split. And I might even lean more in Iowa fans' favor there. It was one of the best atmospheres at the barn for a women's game in a while. The Jaylen Clark effects that Iowa still has is kind of interesting and a bigger discussion, I guess, for the overarching feel of women's basketball. But it was a good atmosphere at the barn. The Gophers are showing that their program's in the right direction, but they still have an extra step to go to compete with the Big Ten's elite. I was looking after the game. I think it was their 11th straight loss to Iowa. I don't think they've beaten them in 6 or 7 years. So they still have a step they need to go if they want to compete with that upper echelon of the Big Ten. But they look like a team that should firmly be on the NCAA tournament bubble as we get closer to March here.
Where were they in the latest bracketology Friday?
Yeah, so there was another one that released Friday, and honestly, they didn't go very unchanged. They were still last 4 buys, which means I think there were 4 teams below them in the rankings. And I think that what they can hold their hat on right now is their net ranking, which is the biggest tool that the NCAA uses to choose these at-large teams. And they kind of gamed the system a little bit. There's a lot of complaints about the net that blowing out bad teams really helps your ranking. And they did a lot of that in the non-conference. They had a lot of 40-point wins over sub-250 ranked teams. And they still ranked 29th in the net with having only 1 win against a projected NCAA tournament team. So if they take care of business down the rest of the year and win the games they're supposed to win, and they have a tough road game at Ohio State next week and then at Michigan State last regular season game of the year, if they lose both those and then win the other 4 games that they're supposed to win, I think it'll be a stressful selection Sunday, but their net ranking at that point will probably not change much. But if they can win one of those against Michigan State or Ohio State, I think they're in the field. So it'll be an interesting finish to the regular season.
Okay, guys, let's predict the men's basketball team game. They have a big one, 5:00 Saturday. Illinois, top 25 team, top 15 in the net. This is kind of it. I mean, you got to win out basically if you want any shot at the NCAA tournament, unless you win the Big Ten tournament. Can the Gophers men's basketball team avoid one of those absolutely horrendous, eye-bleeding type of first halves or second halves and beat the Fighting Illini Saturday at Williams Arena?
Yeah, I think that they're going to have a good chance because Illinois is reeling right now. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I know they've They've lost a good chunk of their last couple games. I don't know what their exact streak is, but
They were 4-1 in the conference, and they are now 7-6. So by that math, they've won 3 of their last 8.
Isn't top 10 pick guy Casper Kapapalanonis? Is he injured still?
Yakachonis.
There you go.
Kasparas Yakachonis. He's very good. I don't know what his health status is.
Yeah, I think he's played the last few games, and
he played in the last game.
Yeah,
Okay.
Illinois is honestly might be the most talented team in the Big Ten this year, but they just haven't been playing like it recently. I think the barn has shown that it can still be a good atmosphere for these Saturday games, and it's a night game too. So I think it could be a good atmosphere, and I think it's going to be close. And I'm going to give Ben Johnson and the Gophers the benefit of the doubt, and I think they'll pull off the upset.
Ken Palm has them with a 25% chance to do so, but I like that they're at home. Barnes is a tough place to play. Illinois has been a little inconsistent. I think for the Gophers, it comes down to, can they make the Big Ten tournament? I think that's the realistic goal. My Northwestern Wildcats, we're tied we're both 4-8 here, and right on that 15-16 cut line. So big game, by the way, coming up. I think February 25th at the barn. Northwestern will be in town, and I think 2 of our starters are out for the year. We're looking really cool, but I will be in attendance wearing purple, so that'll be a big one.
Okay, so you guys think it's all about the Big Ten tournament. I don't know if you know John Rothstein, but he's a pretty big deal, and he says the Gophers are an underrated, under the radar Big Ten storyline, becoming an absolute nuisance for opponents to play against. I don't know if
they weren't much of a nuisance for Michigan State in the first half,
or Washington at home,
or North Texas.
Yeah, North Texas. They made 3 shots in the first half. I mean, that's what I'm talking about.
I was at that game.
I would rather lay on some railroad tracks than watch some of these halves, and it's not good. So maybe a nuisance sometimes, but not like to the point where guys like Andy Katz and John Rothstein are out there championing these Golden Gophers. It's kind of strange. Like, at least Andy Katz did it after they won 3 games in a row. I don't know what John Rothstein is watching, but maybe he was watching St. Thomas because they were on the Field of 68 live stream the other night.
I think what all these talking heads and coaches saying good things about Ben Johnson means is that he's just a really likable guy. I think Tom Izzo's a fan. Andy Katz is a fan. Clearly, John Rothstein's a fan. And a lot of people want to see him succeed. And I'm in that boat too. He seems like an awesome dude, former Gopher, but there becomes a point where you got to show results. And a win this Saturday against Illinois would be the first step to, I guess, in the right direction.
What? One more question, Gopher-related question. What happened here? What happened, Tony? Where did the mustache go? What happened?
Vanished. It ran away.
I mean, look at that thing. That thing's majestic. And then you went hacksaw Jim Duggan on it. What happened?
It'll be back. Don't worry.
How long did it take you to grow that?
I don't know. To that level, probably like 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
That's it. That's impressive. Oh my God. Will, how long does it take you to grow that beard?
This has been going for over a month. I don't think I've fully trimmed it at all since last year, but it's getting to the point where I may need to soon. It's getting a little unkempt.
It looks good. Tony, very disappointing. That's all I got. Anything else, guys?
I don't think so. Wolves-Blazers tomorrow night is sneaky good. The Blazers have won 10 of 11. Kumani Kamara.
You can't even count them out of the play-in at this point, the way they're rolling.
They just might keep winning.
You never know. You know?
Yeah, we'll see.
I don't
think DeAndre Ayton could get motivated.
You don't think you could name 3 Blazers?
No.
I'm familiar with Anthony Simons and Shaden Sharp.
Can you spell Jeremy Grant?
Yeah, I could have got to those actually. I would have those 3.
Scoot Henderson, the pick after Wemby.
Yeah, I wanted him.
If I thought about it, I would have got there. I wasn't giving myself credit.
Can you spell Jeremy Grant? That's the harder part.
Isn't it Jeremy? Jermi?
AMI.
That's Jeremy, but AMI, yes. All right, gentlemen. Hey, everybody, like, subscribe. That we really appreciate it. We want to get to 1,000 subscribers because then we can actually make like $1.50 every video. That'd be great. You know, once we get to 1 million views, we'll make like $50 a video. So if you like and subscribe, we can monetize this thing and bring you more of this. I mean, this is basically ESPN. So we really appreciate it. Tony, Will, have a wonderful weekend, and we'll talk to you again another day.